Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the Redzone Review Sports Podcast. So, it has been a little bit since I've made a sports podcast on this channel, and that is because I've been, first of all, very busy, but if you've been keeping track, I have been doing weekly videos predicting who will win the games. So that's been good because I haven't been able to do that in the past, and I'm happy that I've been able to do that. But I was actually supposed to do this live stream last Saturday, and I actually recorded the whole thing thinking I was streaming. OBS said it was streaming, and it turns out that YouTube updated their stream service, and you have to actually get a new stream key. So it reset everything. So I'm all good now. I am on the YouTube platform, so that's good to know. And if you're listening on audio, you can go ahead and look on YouTube in the future to see this show when it happens live and get some video versions if you want to see me and my set behind me as well. Go ahead and do that. And maybe you're watching this now or in the future and you think, oh, maybe the audio is better for me. You can get this podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google, anywhere you would like. So go ahead and follow there if you want. And I'll also before we hop into everything, I'm going to plug my Instagram and my Twitter. So I've got my Twitter here at Riley Redzone. Very useful. I'm right now posting every week my Thursday night pick, which is because I'm normally not able to get the video out in time. So I always predict the Thursday night game on Twitter. So you can go ahead and get that there. And then the Instagram, I'm still kind of setting up. We don't have any followers yet, but we'll get there eventually. So yeah, that is going to be my plug. So as you can see on the left side of the screen, if you are watching on the video version, I have 3 things on the agenda today. As now I planned this before week 5. I was supposed to do it, on the Saturday. So I was going to say we're a quarter of the way through. Now we're over a quarter of further than that of the NFL season. So I want to already talk about who I think are the favorites for the NFL awards so far this season. I'm wearing a Russell Wilson jersey because we'll talk about him. I'm not a Seahawks fan, though. I'm a Vikings fan. But have to talk about that. So we are doing that. Then we're talking about some college football, as I really think this is a great opportunity for me to talk about college football because I'm mostly doing NFL content on the channel, but don't worry, I'll get some college out there. And then lastly, I'm going to just for right now rank my top 10 teams. I haven't yet gotten into power rankings. Maybe in the future I can do that. I just feel really busy right now with the picks alone. So when I have time like this though, which I have most of this week off, I'm going to be using that time to hopefully put out some content for you guys. So with that being said, I'm going to jump into the first segment here. So I'm going to talk about every NFL award. So I'm going to be discussing the MVP, the Offensive Player of the Year, the Defensive Player of the Year, the Offensive Rookie of the Year, and the Defensive Rookie of the Year, and as well as the Comeback Player of the Year and the Coach of the Year. So I will be talking about all of these awards, just making sure we don't have any chat yet, but I will be talking about all of them. So first I'm going to talk about the MVP. Now the MVP is normally given to a quarterback. So I have 4 quarterbacks on this list. I had some extra when I recorded it on Saturday. Took 2 off. I had Dak Prescott, which prayers to Dak. Right now, I was watching that live when that injury happened. That was not good whatsoever. So prayers for him, hoping he can make a good recovery. But I had him in kind of as a dark horse. He was still in the running. He was putting up a lot of touchdowns. I also, for right now, don't count him out, but I took off Lamar Jackson, as right now I don't think he's performing at the level he did last year. So I don't think he can really compare to these other 4 guys be in the running. So I'm actually recording this right now. Now it's on a Tuesday night, which is actually surprisingly during a football game. That's right, the NFL has Tuesday night football, which is right now the Titans and Bills. And so if anything happens, this could sound obsolete right away, but I'm going to be talking about some of those players because they're in the contention for some of these awards. So it's specifically one that I'll talk about in a little bit. So for MVP, I took out those 2. Once again, don't count out Lamar, but he just has not looked like himself from last year yet. So at number 1, I've got Russell Wilson. Their defense struggled. That would have been 2 nights ago against the Minnesota Vikings, but he was able to clutch up at the end. And as a Vikings fan, you can say whatever you want. I personally am with Zimmer on going for it, but here's the problem with what happened. The big problem of what happened here is I'm fine with going for it, but the problem is that if you're Mike Zimmer, you are known as a defensive head coach. The only reason you go for that is, first of all, if you can't end the game, that's a game over. But second of all, if you have to know in that situation that if you don't get it, you're trusting your defense to stop the other team. And if you're Mike Zimmer, he did. And so to me, the big problem is that he trusted his defense and they didn't get it done. It's not that he went for it, that's fine, but it's that he didn't get it. And you gave Russell Wilson, as I'm about to talk about, the opportunity of a lifetime, and he puts in a clutch drive. And second of all, I know this is kind of talking about the Vikings, but putting rookie Cam Dantzler on DK Metcalf was just not the move. And Russell knows that, so he exploits it. So he did very well. Started a little rusty, but he came on in the second half, and that's what good players do. And so on the season, he has 19 touchdowns, 3 picks. That's crazy. So you're basically saying he'd be on pace right now if he's played 5 games and you could call it 20. You're looking at almost a pace of 60 touchdowns right now. I doubt he gets there, but that's what he's on pace for. So he's just been outstanding. I will say he and the next guy I'm going to talk about have been playing like the best quarterback in football. I still think the number 1 quarterback is the guy right up here that I'm pointing at, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But I think that right now who's playing like the best quarterback, it's got to be Russell Wilson. So coming in a close second, it's very close, is Aaron Rodgers. He did not play this week because he is on bye, but he's looked spectacular. They're putting up a whole lot of points a game. He's thrown to guys, Robert Tonyan was one of their leading receivers a few weeks ago. He's doing it with players that, weren't drafted in the first round and doing very well, even with Devontae Adams out. So I think he's done very well. He has 13 touchdowns, no picks. I'm excited to see him play again here because he has been spectacular this season so far. So he's got to be in the running right there. He statistically, because I'm kind of going off stats. I'm normally not a huge stat guy, but with MVP kind of predicting, it seems people go with the stats. So I'm mentioning all of these. And then we have Patrick Mahomes, who I pointed at earlier. He, I think, still is the number 1 quarterback. He isn't playing like it right now necessarily. I mean, he can at sometimes, but Russell and Aaron Rodgers are kind of on a separate tier. But Mahomes has 13 touchdowns, 1 pick. But how did they lose to the Raiders? They cost me a pick'ems right there. That was crazy. I can't believe they lost to them, but still, I think Mahomes is up there. You got to keep him in the running. You can't take him out. So, he's done very well. I don't think he wins it. I think right now it's got to be Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, but you got to keep Mahomes in the running with that offense. Then, this is a guy that, I believe it's the NBA, has the Most Improved Player award. I think it's probably going to go to maybe Bam Adebayo, for example, for the Heat in NBA. But I love this award. I think that's a great award. The NFL has the Comeback Player of the Year, which I'll talk about later. That's kind of a separate thing, but I think a Most Improved Player could be kind of a very good one to look at. I'm thinking, though, I believe Darren Waller won the Comeback Player of the Year. Unless, maybe they do have a Most Improved. I'm pretty confident, though, that is the NBA that does that. But this is who I would give it to if the NFL did it. Josh Allen. Josh Allen has improved. He still has, I've been talking about for a while, he still has his flaws. He's not perfect in accuracy. But he has a huge arm. He's got to have the best arm talent, and he's really improved. You've seen it where all they needed was Stephon Diggs up there. That's a signed photo of him on the screen, but that's what they needed. They needed a deep threat because he can throw it deep, but he just needed a number 1 receiver that can go catch the ball for him. So that's what they needed, and they got it for him. So he's performed outstanding. He's got 12 touchdowns, 1 pick, and he's going to improve it however he's playing right now. I'm not watching the game at this very moment, but when I looked, it was 7-7, so he could improve that tonight. If he plays well, he'll be up there, maybe above Mahomes, to be honest. But he's really upped his game, so he needs to be mentioned in this. Then we're going to talk about Offensive Player of the Year. Now, Offensive Player of the Year is normally, I would say, given to somebody who is normally not a quarterback, but I did put a quarterback on there, but because otherwise you could obviously say that MVP is the Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, if he's the best player and he's already on offense. But it seems they don't do that. They normally give it to a running back or receiver. Or I guess a tight end could somehow get it, but that hasn't really happened. But I have 4 names here again. And so, number 1 for the Offensive Player of the Year, Dalvin Cook. Now, the problem, he just got hurt. He might only miss 1 week, though. And if he does, he's honestly still in contention. Because right now he's leading the NFL in 489 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns on the ground. So that's huge. I think even if some of these other guys I'm looking at rush for 100 yards, they're still not catching Dalvin Cook right now. So he needs to be in the running, even if he misses 1 week. If he can come back, he will be. Which they have a bye the week after, so that's not going to be good for him statistically. But he can definitely bounce back. So he needs to be up there. But if he gets hurt again, I'm knocking on wood that he doesn't, but if he did get hurt again, or if he misses extended time that we're not thinking he will with this injury, I think he could miss it, but right now you need to keep him in there. Then I have Alvin Kamara, who this is crazy to me. I almost didn't put him on the list because I'm like, he's got almost half the rushing yards Dalvin Cook has, but he has 100 more yards as a receiver, which I guess makes sense with how many screenplays they do, but he has 296 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. But in the receiving game, he has 395 yards and 3 touchdowns, and that is huge for the Saints offense. I mean, last night, Alvin Kamara seemed to be, at the end of the game, the go-to guy for the Saints. He made a clutch catch. With Michael Thomas out, Drew Brees is still getting used to Emmanuel Sanders. Jared Cook was banged up. He went to Alvin Kamara, and he is showing up in the receiving game as well. So he needs to be a mention. So he technically total has 7 touchdowns, just like Dalvin Cook. So he needs to be in the running. And then Aaron Jones is my other one, that he currently has 374 yards and 4 touchdowns. Had a bye this week. And then I didn't look at the receiving numbers, but for example, the game against Detroit, he made a great play with the catch. So that he's a receiving option, like kind of mentioned with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is thrown to guys who are not notoriously known to be great receivers. So he has stepped up in a big way, and that was important for this team. And then my dark horse candidate is Kyler Murray. So he has performed a bit better last week. He had the first 2 weeks he was really good, and then the second 2 weeks he was kind of and then this last week he got another rushing touchdown. But the reason I'm putting him on here is the rushing ability. He has 265 yards and 5 touchdowns from the ground. So had to keep him in there as a dark horse, but right now I would say it's Dalvin Cook, but if he ends up missing more time, Alvin Kamara would be your favorite. Now the Defensive Player of the Year. I have 3 names. All guys who go after the quarterback. They're all edge rushers. So it's interesting because this could, last year it went to Stephon Gilmore. This year, I don't think Stephon Gilmore is quite at the level he was last year. Still very good player, but I don't think he's quite where he was last year. So, looking at Defensive Player of the Year, my 3 nominees are edge rushers, and they all have pretty high sack totals so far this season. So, Aaron Donald. I had him on the list even when he only had 3.5 sacks, right? Because this is like, I'll talk about later for a different award, but sometimes they seem to not give the award. Like, Aaron Donald, for the past 4 years, has been the best defensive player. He could be the Defensive Player of the Year every single season, but they don't. They kind of give it to a guy who's shown out statistically and really improved. But Aaron Donald had 3.5 sacks total going in last week. Now he has 7.5. He got 4 sacks in one game. That is crazy. I mean, it's a mix of Aaron Donald is obviously amazing, but golly, that football team offensive line must have been terrible, because there's no way you let up 4 sacks to one dude like that. I mean, even if it's Aaron Donald, that's just crazy. So, and it's still crazy to think he's a D tackle. He should be at least be double teamed all the time, and he's still putting up these numbers. So right now he's got to be the clear favorite to me. I believe he's already won the award, but if not, he'll get it. But then the other guy, Myles Garrett, you got to keep an eye on him. He's got 6 sacks. I would say honestly right now, if you don't count Aaron Donald as an edge player, he's a pass rusher but not an edge player. If you're talking about edge players, I would say Myles Garrett is probably the best pass rushing edge or defensive end right now, because edge can be outside linebackers with Von Miller hurt and J.J. Watt not being the top one anymore. T.J. Watt's been pretty good, but I would right now give Myles Garrett that top spot. So I think he definitely has he deserves some recognition. It's him and Aaron Donald, I think, for the future that are going to be great. And then I also have, as a dark horse, have Zadarius Smith, who I think is both an impact in the run and the pass. Probably I think he's more of a better run stop player than Myles Garrett, but he has 5 sacks, and he also helps the Packers team on stopping the run. So those are my 3 candidates. I would say Aaron Donald should be the winner, but if Myles Garrett can really step it up again, it could be him. So Offensive Rookie of the Year. I've got 3 favorites and 2 dart throws. So I'm just going to say the dart throws real quick here. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's looked very good. I knew he would be good. I didn't think he was going to be good this year, though. I didn't think he was going to be top fantasy option. Well, I should say I knew he'd play well, but I didn't think he was going to get the opportunity. So that was one of my takes that kind of hasn't looked the best, but so Clyde Edwards-Helaire right away, like Damian Williams, he's out of Kansas City, to be honest. I mean, unless you can get him for nothing, there's no reason to keep him around because they have their future at running back. It fits the system perfectly. So he's not going to win it probably unless these other guys just fall apart. And then the other one I just want to say is James Robinson. He's an undrafted rookie for the Jaguars, took over the Leonard Fournette role, and he's not as powerful as Leonard Fournette, but a lot faster, and they can really run him in the screen game and has a lot more agility and quickness. So he deserves some recognition, as even I didn't think he was going to be drafted, and he maybe should have been with the way he's playing. But so those are 2 dart throws. But then there's 3 guys that I really want to talk about here for the Offensive Rookie of the Year. And the clear one's Joe Burrow. He has looked pretty darn good. Last week didn't do as well, but the first 4 weeks he performed pretty well. I think he may not be getting as many wins for his team, but he's really performing well on tape. He's throwing to T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, AJ Green. He's doing very well. He's playing better than the record shows, if you know what I mean here. So he's performed like an NFL quarterback, a ready right now quarterback. And just the Bengals, their offensive line needs to be fixed. Bobby Hart is up there with struggling at right tackle. One of the lower ones, him and Titus Howard from the Texans, I know are 2 big ones that I think are overrated and overpaid. But so they need to fix that. But Joe Burrow's looked okay in Cincinnati. You've got hope for the future. Then we've got Justin Jefferson, who didn't do a lot against Seattle, but before then he had a 2-week stretch where Justin Jefferson is the Stephon Diggs now of the Minnesota Vikings. He really proved his worth by being number 22. I was shocked the Eagles didn't take him. So the Vikings got a gift getting him, as he looks outstanding. I believe they're kind of playing him on the outside, as he played slot all in college, and it was kind of like, you look at the Vikings receiving core, Thielen, we've got Jefferson, and then Olabisi Johnson, Tajay Sharp, all kind of slot receivers that have to maybe try to play outside. So that's been very interesting to see, but Jefferson has adapted very well. So he's performed pretty well, got to keep him in the running. Then Justin Herbert helped his performance even more last week. I definitely did not think he was going to be performing this well. Herbert is a guy I had ranked in the top 20 of my draft rankings, which next year I think I'm going to do a lot more detail on my draft rankings. I kind of this year just did a prediction video, but if I were to do my big board, for example, this year I had him when I did it as a top 20 player, but I knew he'd be picked top 10. It's just like Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones I probably had somewhere between, I'm going to say 25 and 40. Maybe that's a little high. I might have had him lower than that, but he got picked top 10. So, anything can happen, and I did not expect him, though, to be this good. And it's so sad. Last night, he performed so good. I mean, he performed very well. He's thrown it to Mike Williams. He was doing well with Keenan Allen before, and even, like, you think about it at the end of the game. I mean, although it seems simple, he took what the defense gave him and then just threw it to Mike Williams, and it's a perfect ball where either Mike Williams gets it or nobody gets it. So Herbert has performed spectacular. I just can't believe they're 0-4. Now, I will say the negative on Herbert is just like I knew coming out of college, he's going to make the weird play once a game that you think, what in the world are you thinking? Like, I remember watching the Chiefs-Chargers game. This man has 5 yards in front of him, rolling out to his left, and he chucks it in the middle of the field, and it's easily intercepted because it's double covered. And you think, what are you thinking there, bud? But he's been outstanding, nevertheless. I just cannot believe that they're 0-4. It kind of shows, and I like Anthony Lynn as a coach, but when your young quarterback is playing so well, and you still can't get any, and they're all close losses too. Like last night, I personally think that the Chargers kind of they were half between at the end there. At the end of regulation, are we going for the field goal? Are we trying to get it, or are we just going to let it go to overtime? They seemed kind of in between. And, I mean, Herbert was smart taking what the defense gave him. But if their deep shots were working with Mike Williams, if they maybe did it a little bit faster, they could have got down there a little quicker and gotten more yards for their kicker. Because Badgley's a decent kicker, but it's sad he missed. But yeah, once again, I just cannot believe they're 0-4. Then on defense, last Saturday, I had only 2 guys written down. I've added 2 kind of as dark horses, but I had Chase Young. To me, it's still very clear. I think Chase Young gets the Defensive Rookie of the Year. Still performing decent for the football team. That's really why I'm going to say Chase Young is a great player. But honestly, like Jeff Okudah, I have PFF, and I follow their grades. Jeff Okudah is like, I think, a 26 coverage or something, maybe 33, like below 40. And his overall defensive grade is like in the 40s. He's not looking very good according to that. He will develop, but he just needs some time, and I think we knew that. But I'll say my other dark horse, I wrote C.J. Henderson to kind of be the corner representative, but I don't think he wins it no matter what. But then here are the other 2 to take note of. Last week I did have this guy on there, which was Antoine Winfield. He's performed pretty well for the Bucs at free safety, and then he's a great ball hawk. You saw it at Minnesota. He showed a lot of great instincts. And the other one is Yetur Gross-Matos, which I also thought was a steal. Thought he was going to be picked maybe top 25 or at least in the end of the first round, and he fell all the way to the Panthers in round 2. I was very shocked by that, and he looked very good this week specifically, so I wrote his name in the mix there. Then we have the comeback player of the year, and this one I think I'm going to need some more time to really think of, because I was looking up who was hurt last year, and honestly none of them have been outstanding. You could say, honestly, now that I think about it, I didn't really write them down, but Ben Roethlisberger is definitely one that you could include in here. He might be a great one. But then I also put in, so this one I'm not 100% confident in, but you could put his name in there. You can put Cam Newton. He's been out the last few weeks on the reserve list, not injury, though the other, I think YouTube actually has, like, if you say what it is, he's on the reserve list for he's unable to play, but not because of injury. So, Aldon Smith is my other one. That he hasn't done anything the last 2 weeks, but he performed very well at the beginning. But then again, it is like, on one hand, how did nobody else sign this dude? He hasn't been in the league for 3 years. But I once again say it, and I say it all the time. The off the bench factor is unbeaten. There's a reason Ryan Tannehill came out of nowhere. He's still doing decent this year. But why do you think he absolutely excelled last year? Because the defenses were preparing for Marcus Mariota, and then you got flipped Tannehill. And here's the thing. You can look at film from last week specifically, but that's not very big sample size. And you can't also be looking, because we've only got 2 weeks here, let's look at past tape. You can't do that because guys change from year to year. Maybe they learn something from a coach, they're in a different system, and they just change. So you can't do that. So there's a reason Tannehill happened there. You think about here, Ryan Fitzpatrick. Why has he been paid so many times as a backup? It's because he comes off the bench and nobody's expecting him, and then he gets paid, and then he's a starter, and it's he's okay. And then, for example, in my college quarterbacks video, I ranked Sam Howell number 11, and maybe that was a little low. People were roasting me for it. Well, I'll say they were trying to roast me with it, saying, Sam Howell's the obvious number 3 behind Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. I don't think so. And right now, Sam Howell, maybe I put him a little low, but he was a freshman last year, and he hasn't been a top 3 quarterback this year. I have my Heisman list. Yeah, North Carolina may be undefeated, but I've got 6 guys that, let alone, and there's even more, that I could put in front of him for the Heisman Trophy. So, quarterbacks, not even players. So, I don't think he's a top 3. And you think about it, right? Last year, one of the comments was, last year, he didn't even start half the year. Right. He was a freshman, meaning that if you're wanting to watch film on him, all you're going to have is high school. And what is high school tape going to do for you at the college football Power 5 level? Pretty much nothing. Maybe a little, but not pretty much nothing. So, he performed because he came off the bench. So, that was kind of a rant, as you could call it there. But I'm just saying that is my opinion on this. So, I kind of give these points, I need to emphasize this. That's one thing that I'm always going to say till the end of time right now. Unless something changed my mind, the off-the-bench factor is amazing. So, it's just very interesting. Coach of the Year. Now, this is what I wanted to say about, this is one of them where they don't give it to the person who should get it every year. There's a reason that in basketball, they don't give it to LeBron James every year for MVP. Is he the best player? Probably. He probably is, to be honest. Just about every year. I know Giannis had a good year, but in football, it's equivalent of Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick is the best NFL coach. There's no doubting it. There's no debating it. But they don't give it to him every year. So, Bill Belichick is the best coach. You could say Andy Reid's one of the best coaches. They never give it to him, though, do they? So, I have written down 3 coaches here that I think have kind of overperformed of what I thought they were going to do if they've kind of elevated their team. Recently, they give it to teams like that. They give it to coaches who have kind of elevated their team. So, number 1, I have Sean McDermott. His team is still undefeated. Don't know what's going on in the game right now, but could still be undefeated. I think they need to be mentioned. I'm still not a huge fan of the Bills. I think you'll see where I have them in the rankings. I have them pretty high, but I think that they could lower. I think they've played some honestly pretty easy opponents, specifically the first few weeks. They've played some more difficult ones, and tonight's probably their biggest test yet. But nevertheless, I think they've kind of played some easier ones, but they've got to be mentioned in there. Number 1, though, this could be a huge candidate, is Kevin Stefanski. The Cleveland Browns are 4-1. That is crazy. I cannot believe I can say that. So credit to Kevin Stefanski there, coming from Minnesota and getting stuff done for Cleveland with Baker Mayfield, who I've never thought is a outstanding quarterback, so he's getting it done. And then I put John Gruden on there because I honestly was not a very big Raiders. I didn't like the way their team is constructed or anything like that going into the year. So for them to be kind of on the positive end of 500, I think that's great for them. So they've overperformed, so I put him on there, but I would say Stefanski might be the favorite, but Sean McDermott's got to be in there as well. Now, looking for college football, I have my Heisman favorites, but before that, I'm going to talk about college football in general. This is kind of going to be going off the script. off the rails here. I'm gonna be kind of just going on a little rant here. I love college football. I should say this first of all. I'm always for college football. I love college football. It's how I actually became a football fan back in 2012. Started with college football before I got into the NFL. 2 or 3 years actually before. I'd say 2. I like it. I love college football, but there are some imperfect things. And obviously I know this year's weird, but there's some things I think they could have done. And I'm going to start with number 1. This is for all years. I don't love the 14 playoff format. And I'll talk about this in a few minutes here after I bounce here to this subject on why this year specifically it's going to be very difficult. I think that in the future, I'm going to say an 8-team playoff I think would be perfect because you get your Power 5 winners, you bring one group of 5 team in there, and unless they're undefeated, you put them number 8, you give them the last seed, right? Because I think that makes it fair. You give the group of 5 team the 8th seed, but you take your 5 Power Conference winners, and then you get 2 more wild cards. To me, that's pretty fair. And then, you can kind of base on record on how you want to seed that, however you want to do it. But to me, 8 works very well. But then this year specifically, I don't love the way now, something I like is the top 25. Because you think about it, that's kind of like, this is an official ranking. Like with the NFL, you can debate things all the time, right? But there is no official ranking until the playoffs on who is the best team. You have your records, but you can still debate. You can make a case that a 2-2 team may be better than a 3-1 team. You've got that. But in college football, whatever your ranking is, that's going to impact you, even for making the playoffs. So, here's the problem with the rankings right now. I personally don't like it that they already put in the rankings for teams that are not playing yet. Now, I know that it was very difficult as 3 of the Power 5 conferences said they're playing and then 2 of them said they weren't, and now they're both getting back in, so they're behind. But what doesn't make sense to me is how the first 2 or 3 weeks they didn't include those teams. They didn't include those teams. And what's cool about that is, for example, you had a team like Cincinnati, or at one point it was UCF until they lost, but you had these American teams kind of jumping up there to getting close to number 10, and that type of thing. But now you introduce all the Big Ten schools and Pac-12. Now the Pac-12 won't really have much except for Oregon, but you're adding all these schools. And what I don't get is how, yes, I know that they announced they're going to play football, but I don't like it that they added them to the rankings immediately. I definitely think that they need to be there at some point, and I'm not saying it's wrong they necessarily do rank them, but I personally think it would have been better if they wait till the week before the Big Ten's about to play, and then they put them in. Because right now what we have, and it's going to be very interesting, and this is going to kind of just keep jumping into the points here, is right now we have Ohio State in the top 10. And I actually believe Wisconsin, it maybe was, or some other team, went into the top 10. Because last week we had some big teams go down. We had Florida lose. We had Auburn lose to Bama. We had Miami all lose. They were all top 10, I believe top 7 teams. Or at least top 8, top 10 teams. And what happened there is we had this avalanche. For example, North Carolina moved up from the early teens to now I think they're number 5. That is crazy. Now, that happens in college football. But here is where the problem begins. Now we have Ohio State. We have eventually Wisconsin. Probably Michigan. And I'll say Oregon. And the problem is as teams start to lose above them that have already been playing, let's say it's a Notre Dame, it's a Georgia, it's a North Carolina, those types of schools, Oklahoma State, they're going to lose, and at some point, in my opinion, maybe not, I think Big Ten is already starting, not this Saturday, but maybe next Saturday, I think, or it's the weekend after, but, so we're coming close, and maybe this won't happen, but I've been thinking for a little bit that we're going to end up with, 3 top 10 teams that haven't played yet. and I don't know how fair that is. And like I said, you need to include him at some point, but I don't think right away is the right move. And then this is kind of more of an interesting thing. It's too late to change the playoff format. Like I said a few minutes ago, I think an 8-team playoff format would be the best, but you can't right now make a change. So that's not going to happen. But what you can do here, you can't really make a solution, but what I should say more is I'm very interested to watch how they take this approach. How do you compare, as an example? I don't know how many games each team plays for sure, but I think it's around 6 or so, or maybe 8 for the Big Ten, and it's more obviously for the teams that have already played, like the SEC, ACC. I don't know if this is off the top of my head, but let's say the ACC and the SEC, they play 10 games, and the Big Ten plays 6. What is better? 9-1 or 6-0? What's better, 8-2 or 6-0, or maybe even 5-1? Like, it's gonna become a advantage or a disadvantage. As, for example, the Pac-12, I think, might be the worst Power 5 conference at the moment. Oregon's probably their best team, but behind that, they're not playing too many good teams. So then, if Oregon goes 6-0, how does that judge compared to some of these SEC teams? I'm very interested to see that, but I'm just kind of excited to see that, but I hope they don't mess that up. But it could be an advantage. Like, in one hand, if you're Ohio State, you only have to win 6 games, and you're probably guaranteed a playoff spot, probably. But then the disadvantage is, in the past, if you lose 1 game, you're normally still in it. You need to lose 2 or more to be out of the playoff. But this year, if you're a Big Ten team, pretty much you lose 1 game, you're probably done, unless you're a top team. Whereas these other schools, there's a chance. I think it could be this year, almost an all undefeated playoff, but there's a chance that you can still make it at 1 loss. But when you only play 6 games, I don't think you deserve to either. So that was just kind of my opinion on college football, the state of college football right now. So that's what I think of. So it's very interesting. But this kind of transitions into the actual segment, which is my Heisman favorites. I have 6 names. I'd say 5 contenders and 1 that I'm going to live on the hill of this until the season's over. I may be completely wrong, but I am still planting my flag for this player, so I need to make sure I emphasize that there's a chance he still could do it. But I'm only listing players that have played. So, Justin Fields. Great example. Tanner Morgan. Those guys, they can perform as well as they want, but I don't think they can make the playoff. They can win their Big Ten championship, but I don't think they necessarily deserve a Heisman Trophy. So I'm only going to be considering players who have already played. So with that being said, I have 6. These are kind of in order, but not necessarily, to be honest. Right now, I'm just gonna list them kind of. I've got Kyle Trask, the Florida quarterback. I think I had him right at maybe 11, or it might have been number 10 in my video. I would probably raise him up. I don't think he could be a late round pick next year, but he's looked very good. Now, he does have some top options, as Pitts has been the best tight end in the country. He's performed outstanding. I believe it's Kyle Pitts, yeah. He's performed outstanding. He's going to be a first-round draft pick, no doubt. So he's had that help. And I will tell you what, Tony, number one, I think it's Kadarius. Tony for Florida. Now he's starting on everybody's radars. But I've been a fan of him since last year against Miami. I watched the first game, because that was the inaugural game last year of college football. I watched him play, and he just looks outstanding with the ball. Kind of like a Tyreek Hill, but he's more of a running back. I think he's listed as a wide receiver. To me, he plays running back, and really is going to be, well, if he goes to like a Kyle Shanahan, or even, he's almost like, in my opinion, what like Cordero Patterson is, but even more maybe explosive. I think, honestly, he can play running back. Specifically, though, I think the screen game is amazing. So Kyle Trask has a lot of help, I should say. But he's got 14 touchdowns, 1 pick. I think he's performing very well. We'll see if Florida, they lost a game already, So we'll see how that happens, but I think he's performed very well and deserves a nominee here. Trevor Lawrence has performed very well. They're the number 1 team in the country. This is once again, he is the number 1 quarterback in college football, but they normally give the Heisman to a very high statistically quarterback. So he's got 10 touchdowns, no picks. That's pretty darn good. So I'm going to leave him in there. He's been pretty good. Now, Sam Ehlinger, they've already lost their, I believe, just inside the top 25. They might be out of it now, but he's got 16 touchdowns, 4 picks. So the 16 touchdowns is great, but he's still not making great decisions. So I think that Sam Ehlinger might be, he could be drafted in the 5th or 6th round, but I don't think he's going to be a great NFL quarterback no matter what. So, he's just like, and for an example, I think Ian Book is a player that is a great college quarterback, or I should say decent college quarterback. He'll run your offense and he'll win you games in college football, but I don't think he's going to be a top player in the NFL. But, he's a player like that. So then you've got Sam Ehlinger here again. He's just kind of there. I think he's got the touchdowns, but the interceptions are not good. And I right now think a quarterback wins the award. But you could see, I believe it's Iowa State's running back is one of the top. They have not been doing outstanding, so I don't think he wins it. So I think a quarterback wins it this year. But then another player, Mac Jones. I wasn't that big of a fan of Mac Jones going in. Maybe I need to do an updated top 25 video, but he'd probably be in there now. But I don't think he's super high up there. But he's got 8 touchdowns, 1 pick. It's hard to say with Mac Jones because Alabama's had so many Mac quarterbacks over the years. I mean, do you guys remember we had A.J. McCarron, he's just a prototypical backup. But can we just get to remember, I believe it was Cam. No, it was Blake. It was Blake Sims. Like, Alabama wins with Blake Sims. They can win with anybody. And then obviously Tua's probably their best quarterback they've had over the past few years. But yeah, they can win with A.J. McCarron. What's his name? Jake Coker, I think it was. They can win with anybody. So it's hard to tell because he's thrown to Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, and Najee Harris. He's got the best surrounding talent in the league. And offensive line with the likes of Alex Leatherwood. So, I mean, he's got the best surrounding talent. So it's hard to judge him for that. Then another one, Spencer Rattler. 13 touchdowns, 5 picks. A lot of touchdowns. He, is Oklahoma's next quarterback, but I don't think he wins it this year. I'm kind of glad. I think he is probably a top 25 quarterback now, but I didn't put him in the video because he didn't play a snap. And I feel okay about that. Everybody thought that he'd be good because basically because he went to Oklahoma, But I think he's good. He'll be the future of Lincoln Riley here unless Lincoln Riley leaves for an NFL job, which he's, I think, for sure good enough for if he gets a good defensive coordinator. But he needs to be in here, but I don't think he wins it. And then, once again, I am planting my flag for D'Eriq King. He may have lost last week to Clemson, but this man is amazing. He's got some great running ability. Once again, don't think he's going to be a great NFL quarterback, but he's got to be up there. He's only got 6 touchdowns, 2 picks, but I believe in him. Last year, I should say, I didn't have the podcast going, but last year I rode on the Jalen Hurts Heisman train the whole season, and I was close. If Joe Burrow was not a thing, Jalen Hurts might win the Heisman, or at least, he's really high up there. So, if Joe Burrow didn't exist, I think he has a chance, but this year, I'm going on D'Eriq King. He's my guy. If he doesn't win, that's okay, but I am jumping on the bandwagon of D'Eriq King, so I'm hoping he does well. But that's the list. I would say Kyle Trask honestly might be the favorite right now. If you would have told me 2 months ago, I'd be saying Kyle Trask is the Heisman favorite. I would not believe you. But Trevor Lawrence is up there. I mean, maybe if Justin Fields can somehow do something, I don't think so. But I just don't think there's enough sample size for these guys in the Big Ten. He's got to be the only guy, I think, though, that can make something happen, maybe to make a case. But I think it has to be one of these guys. But last segment of the day here, I'm going to be doing my top 10 NFL teams. I'm going to go from 10 to 1. And I'm going to be honest. I don't think that this list is it really in a way makes sense. It feels like there's not 10 good teams. It almost feels weird putting Like, I really value record. For example, I will say the Patriots with Cam Newton, if they are healthy, I think the Patriots with Cam Newton can beat even the Bills in their division. I do, head-to-head. I didn't put them because they're only 2-2, but I think they're good. The Saints are good. I didn't put them in there. Those are some teams that I thought going into the season. Cardinals, Niners are teams I really thought would be. There's no NFC East teams in this. All these teams have 3 wins or above. Actually, except for the Titans, they are a top 10 team, I'll say that. All of them have, I believe, 4 or more wins. So, yeah. So we've got some good teams, record-wise, but I was once again surprised. Looking at this list, I would say there's about 7 actually decent teams, and it's very unbalanced. I have, I'll just get to that, but basically, I'm going to be ranking it from 10 to 1. So, at number 10, the Bear Down Chicago Bears. So, you could put them higher. They beat the Bucks, but this quarterback situation is awful. I mean, it is not good. One of the worst in the NFL. Now, I was very shocked, to be honest, that I think going into the season, it made sense for them to go with Foles. I honestly thought they should have, but then once they were 3-0, even though they're losing the Falcons, I was very shocked they pulled the switch on Trubisky. So once again, it was like going into the season, I was thinking Foles should have had the job. But then once you're 3-0, I don't think you can switch that fast. But they did, and it worked out for one game. Foles didn't do great against the Colts. But then they won. But once again, he didn't do great against the Bucs. So I have him at number 10 because this quarterback situation is just not there. Khalil Mack's always going to be good on the defense, but they're definitely very surprising that this is a top 10 team. But that is the situation. I will say it right now. I do not have an NFC South team or an NFC East team. Now, maybe you could make a case for the Saints or the Bucks, and this is where I probably would have put the Bucks, but they lost to the Bears. So for right now, I put the Bears ahead. Then at number 9, I have the Browns. Did I really just say that the Browns have a top 10 team? I think I did. I think I'm thinking correctly. I going into the season 2, I thought we'd once again be on the hype train for the Browns, overhyping them again. But this year, they're doing well. Credit to Kevin Stefanski. And it hurts that Nick Chubb is hurt, but they still have Kareem Hunt. So they are looking very good on offense. So, and then Myles Garrett as well is a game changer on the defense. So he deserves some credit there. Credit to Kevin Stefanski. Once again, I'm very shocked that I'm saying that right now the Cleveland Browns are a top 10 team. Hey, it's 2020. Anything can happen, I guess, at this point. So, the Rams are number 8. The Rams, Jared Goff's been okay, I guess. It's been interesting to see what they're doing with the run game. Now they've got Henderson, Akers, Malcolm Brown. That's very interesting. And then their receivers, obviously, you've got Woods and Kupp. And Higbee's been good every once in a while. And obviously they have the best defensive player in the league, Aaron Donald, with 7.5 sacks. That is crazy. But they've been decent. And then we have the Titans, who are playing right now. One team, it's probably going to drop down these ranks, but honestly, the Titans, I don't know how they're doing. They might be a little rusty, though, because they haven't played in a few weeks, but they've got some potential there. They need to get Derrick Henry going again. They need A.J. Brown back. If they can get both those things to go, they're going to look okay. But then this is where I think these are a clear top 6. And I could rearrange a little bit of this, but these to me are the 6 playoff. I should even say right now at this very current moment. Now things can change if the Bucks, the Saints, they become on fire. I think if the Cardinals or Niners can get on a hot streak, they could win the Super Bowl. But right now I'd say these 6 teams are your Super Bowl contenders. At number 6, I've got the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson. Now he has not looked what he was last year. So that's a little disappointing. But nevertheless, he's still doing very well, and he just needs to get rolling a little bit. They're trying to figure out the run game between Ingram and Dobbins. They're working out if Marquise Brown can get going. They've got Mark Andrews. They're looking okay. You can't take them out of Super Bowl contention. So I think that they've, even though Lamar hasn't been spectacular, I think they're a Super Bowl caliber team. At number 6, the Buffalo Bills. Once again, was not a huge fan going into the season. I knew there was a possibility they'd win the division, but I didn't think they would. But they right now are on pace to. So Diggs was exactly what they needed for that offense. So credit to them for going out and getting Josh Allen a playmaker, which Josh Allen has looked very good this year. Then at number 4, I have. Did I say number 4 for the Bills? I meant number 5. But at number 4, I have Pittsburgh Steelers. And Ben has looked very well, and I that was one of my things I was going to predict, is that Ben would perform well. People kind of forgot about him just because he was out last year. And him, the Juju, he's getting Chase Claypool. Holy cow, Chase Claypool with, I believe it was 5 touchdowns. Well, 4, I think, and then they took back one maybe, or maybe it was 5 touchdowns. Crazy. And as a Notre Dame fan, I knew he'd be something special, and he's been showing that. So, in my opinion, though, they have the best defense in the league. They have Minka Fitzpatrick, T.J. Watt, Cameron Hayward, Joe Hayden, all these good players on the back, and so they look really good. So with that defense, I think they're number 4. At number 3, I have the Kansas City Chiefs, who, once again, how did you lose to the Raiders? I don't know, but they did. Cost me pick up this game. Again, nobody predicted that. But, they are good. Their offense is good. I know it's basic, but they have great offense, with Edwards-Helaire, obviously Mahomes, Hill, Watkins, Kelsey. They've got players all over the place. And on defense, if they can get Frank Clark going and Tyrann Mathieu, they still look pretty good. Got to keep them in contention. And then my top 2 teams, the Green Bay Packers. They're putting up about 40 points a game. They're scoring all over the place, and they're doing it without Devontae Adams. They've got Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones. They're throwing to Robert Tonyan out of all people. And then their defense with Zadarius Smith is great. Jair Alexander's an up-and-coming corner. They've got some great potential on this team. So they right now are my number 2, but you can make a case for them to be number 1. But number 1 right now, I have Seattle Seahawks. Now, this is where I'm saying you can make a case. The Seahawks have now performed great on defense, to be honest. But I think that right now, with the way Russell Wilson's playing, they've done enough to where they should be the best team in the NFL. So I think they need to figure it out on defense, but they've got potential. They have Bobby Wagner. And Shaquille Griffin has really blossomed into a decent corner, in my opinion. And Jamal Adams, when he's back and healthy, they can blitz him. I mean, I know the Vikings don't have a great offensive line, but they were getting Ryan Neal, like a practice squad player from Atlanta, getting some pressure on the quarterback. And so when they get Jamal Adams back again, I think they're going to recover. So Seahawks have looked very, very good. So that is my top 10 teams. Not really as I would have predicted. I think I would have had the Niners, Saints, Bucks in there. I keep saying those teams, but I just am shocked. I honestly probably would have had the Eagles in there going into the season. So I was very shocked about that. But with that being said, I think that's all the segments, though. Once again, in the future, if you are ever watching live, maybe I'll try to make more emphasis that people come watch the podcast. I really appreciate it. Hopefully I can maybe get some future, maybe some NFL guests or, former players of any type. I've been working on it for a while. Still trying to, so if you have any references or anything, definitely trying to get some more recognition with this podcast. And now, I'm trying to get it known at different places. Now we're on all the services. I'm verified on a podcast, Google basically. So if you want to check out those, and once again, check out the Twitter and the Instagram. Both have great things to look at. I'm trying to work, at getting this channel growing, and we're slowly getting there. And you know what? We're trying our best, and with 2020 and everything, I appreciate every single view, and all of you out there. So, like the video if you're watching it, and you enjoyed it, or leave a review on your podcast. It's hard to kind of track. Some of you may be listening and some of you may be watching. So also, if you're listening and I have breaks where I'm not doing a podcast for a bit, always just come check me out on the socials or YouTube, and just if you want some extra football content. So with that being said, thank you so much for listening or watching the Redzone Review podcast.